Thanks for coming. I very much appreciate everybody joining us today. Actually, I know it's a little bit raining there, so thank you for joining us today. So my name is Yongkang HE. So I've included a few organizers. So my name is Yongkang HE. I'm a principal container specialist. So literally cover everything about Kubernetes, running from any cloud. I do love multi-cloud. So today we're going to focus on Alibaba Cloud. That's one of the topics that we're going to cover for today. And together, I also have Shiraka as my co-organizer. He wasn't here yet. And Louisa, she's actually helping us to organize the Zoom meeting for the online attendance. So again, thanks everybody for joining us. I do have quite a lot of stuff for 2 hours today, so let's move on. So first of all, thanks to our sponsors. If you guys get the swag here, Grafana does provide us with nice swag. In addition, I also have CloudCasa and Statistic also provide some small swags as well. I will share with you very shortly. And also, obviously, thanks to Alibaba Cloud, who provided us the nice application, and also they also have the swag to share with you. And obviously, the venue is pretty nice. Thanks, Alibaba, as well. And we also have CNCF for us. So just to share with you guys will see the swag over here, right? Probably you guys already received. For the one from Civic, they do provide us the stickers and also the phone holder. And for also Civic provide us a few, actually only three t-shirts. So in my topic, I will ask you just a simple 3 questions. So each one of you will get a t-shirt. And for the stickers, everyone should have in the past the phone cables from CloudCasa. Okay. How many of you first time here? Join? Oh, that's a lot. Thank you everybody for joining us. So I set up the Kubernetes meetup back in September. It's my first one. So my mission is to basically to learn to share. And I very much love Kubernetes. I spend a lot of time to learn, but the Kubernetes is so hard. There are a lot of stuff. That's why I need a platform to learn quicker as well. So I set up the group to allow people to learn from each other and to grow together. It is hard, right? So many different stuff to cover. So far we only covered a few stuff. So in our host meetup at AWS, we talk about Amazon EKS and how to protect the containers, etc. And we also talk about the little bit of the log monitoring, the trains, etc. And the second one we did at Red Hat. So talk about OpenShift. The last one, it was at Google. So think about I'm a multi-cloud guy. I need to cover everything. So that's the beginning of our Kubernetes meetup learning journey. So along the way, we're going to be expanding a little bit more. So today's, if you guys want to miss the previous meetup, I do have a link. So aim for media, aim for meetup.K8SUG.com. That's all of the videos will be published here. So for today's topic, so first of all, I have K8SUG from Alibaba Cloud to talk about Alibaba Cloud ACK. So for those of you who are not aware, Alibaba Cloud ACK is one of the very popular Kubernetes as well. So I think Ken will talk a little bit more shortly. And after that, we're going to have Christian from Grafana to talk about the Grafana Phlare. That's actually something new. So he won't be able to be here on site, but he will join us in the virtual via Zoom to talk about Phlare. And after that, I will cover the secure ACK containers. To be more specific, I actually split it as two separate topics. First of all, I will talk about how to secure the containers from the tool, which I recently learned about the CloudCasa, doing the backup, doing the security. And secondly, I will talk about secure the ACK containers from a barcode. You guys are hold of barcode, the open source tool. Previous meetup, I did cover a little bit of the barcode, but I haven't given everybody a live demo yet. This time I'm going to give a demo on barcode, how to use barcode to secure your containers. And last, I typically have a few minutes for a new announcement. Maybe there's some new meetup, maybe some new project that just launched. And if anybody has anything want to announce, also welcome to come here to announce. And last, we're going to take photos and we're going to have a little bit more social networking, maybe have some questions, etc. That's about today's topic. So with that, let me hand it over to Ken to talk about Alibaba Cloud.
Hello everyone. By the way, my name is Ken. I'm the solution architect from Alibaba Cloud. I'm looking after a few industries like media, gaming, and also sports, and certain products as well. For example, in our Elastic service, our container, our cloud native products line. Right. By show of hands, anyone actually use Alibaba Cloud native solutions before? No. Okay, I hope after today's session, you can start trying our products, right? Okay. Yeah, so for today's agenda, I know from the event website is shown that I will be presenting on our Alibaba container platform. I will also introduce our new product called ACK1. ACK stands for Alibaba Cloud Container for Kubernetes. Okay, then we have a brand new product called ACK1, which supports multi-cloud capabilities. Yeah. Okay, so the content for today will be first session. I will talk about our cloud native product, our ACK overview. Then I will go deep dive into the new product ACK1, right? Its overview, its use cases. And maybe if I got time, I will talk about a bit about successful stories about ACK1. All right. So Alibaba Cloud container platform overview. Right. This is the overview of our container service portfolio on Alibaba Cloud. Mainly three products you can find. Yeah. The first one is our container service for Kubernetes. We call it, in short, we call it ACK. Basically, it's a managed Kubernetes cluster you can spin up on Alibaba Cloud. And there's two flavors of it. It's not written here. One is we call it the dedicated ACK cluster, or you can choose the managed ACK cluster. What the difference between two is the dedicated one, you need to manage your own master nodes. For the managed one, we will manage the master node for you. You only need to pay for the worker nodes, the resource. And the good thing about our ACK is itself is free if you are not using the pro version. Then anything that's under 100 nodes or 100 worker nodes, you don't really have to use the pro ACK, managed ACK pro version. Then it's free, actually, free of charge. You need to pay the underlying resources like our Elastic compute service, which is EC2 equivalent in AWS, right? And also other things like load balancer, things like that. Right? That's our ACK. Then ASK, what is ASK? So ASK is basically our serverless flavor for our Kubernetes cluster. But underneath it's not powered by the standard VMs, right? The standard ECS we call it, Elastic Compute Service. But it's actually powered by Elastic Container Instance. Basically, you can treat it as a pool of resource whereby you can just throw in your pods inside. For your pods inside, it will just expand or scale so infinitely according to how much hops you throw in. So that's why it's called elastic. That's why it's called serverless, right? And the third product is the main product we call it container registry. It's pretty standard. It's just your private image, Docker image registry that holds on Alibaba Cloud to use together. Yeah. The value proposition, if I see it, is able, underneath it is actually able to use all our different cloud services and products, for example, like our computing, our elastic compute service, our bare metal. And just one point is our bare metal is actually optimized for Kubernetes to have a better performance. You can use our different network products and storage products to go under our ACK cluster and so ASK clusters. Right. So why to use Alibaba Cloud ACK? Right. One of the reasons is actually by Forrester Wave, the report from last quarter, we are actually ranked in the leader quadrant, right, together with GCP. Even above, surprisingly, we are even above AWS and Microsoft in container platform. This report from Forrester Wave last quarter. Reason being is we actually have quite a few functions. For example, like a different DevOps CI/CD functionalities built in. We also have different end-to-end functions like the security functions as well combined together. And also we do have expanded enterprise value with our cloud native marketplace partner ecosystem. And the other 4 reasons why to choose our ACK over our competitors. First, we have a rich portfolio of products. Just now I mentioned our ACK, our serverless Kubernetes. Also, we have a service mesh service as well, one-click deployment of a service mesh, and our different DevOps products on our ACR is integrated inside our registry, container registry. And lastly, and also they are mostly supported hybrid cloud and the multi-cloud, right, which I will go through in the ACK1 part. Yeah, we do have a large scale adoption. Everyone knows double 11, double 12, right? They are run for top of Alibaba.com. They are run 100% on our ACK as well. And also in terms of elasticity, we are also up there. We support multiple types of auto scaling, and it's being tuned. For example, our bare metal, the underneath nodes is being tuned. The processor is being tuned to optimize the performance of Kubernetes. And lastly, the performance I mentioned, we actually do some optimization from our the bare metals. Okay, so ACK1, I'm going to go through ACK1. ACK1 is a new product we just launched not long ago by Alibaba Cloud. What it is, right? So basically, we try to solve this problem by the trend of distributed cloud computing. More and more customers we see that they are trying to use multi-cloud for their Kubernetes. For example, based on some of the reports, like Forrester Wave, 89% of the enterprise start to deploy more than 2 clouds for their container platform. Like 50% of the large enterprise actually use a distributed cloud architecture for their application deployment. Right. So all these trends show one direction, that most of the customers are not just use one cloud to deploy containers or deploy their Kubernetes clusters. Right. But with so many clouds to manage, it's actually come with some pain point as well. For example, security risk, operation and manage complexity as well as building complexity. So to solve that, we come up with ACK1. Basically, ACK1 is allowed to provide a control plane to manage container infrastructure in a unified manner over multi-cloud scenarios. Right? It actually provide an open and consistent cloud computing service to manage your business and data in different locations as well as different cloud or even your on-prem or on clouds. Right? You're also able to build a modernized cloud native IT system that enable unified this cluster management, resource scheduling, and ER, and as well as application deployment. Right? So basically, it supports elastic scaling from on-prem to cloud, be able to do cross-region application deployment or management, and it's also able to help you to do resource scheduling over different regions, as well as backup and restoration of Kubernetes resources. Right. So you can see that underneath what type of cluster it supports. It supports clusters in different regions, clusters at our edge node, and clusters at our after stack is our private cloud Phlare operates. Yeah, and it also supports third-party cloud as well. So some of the scenarios that you can use ACK1. One is just register your data centers Kubernetes cluster to our ACK1. Right? So you can have like a express connect. It's like in AWS is direct connect, right? To have a connection from your data center to our Alibaba Cloud, and you register your Kubernetes cluster to our ACK1. Right, by installing agent, basically ACK1 agent. Then from there, right, you can start to manage your Kubernetes cluster on Alibaba Cloud, and also make use of our other services like our logging, our monitoring, and also our eventing services. Right. So the other scenario connect to once you register your Kubernetes cluster, maybe from on-prem or from other clouds to our ACK1. You can start to do things like scheduling or burst cluster bursting to our cloud. For example, opening up those schools in our cloud. Right. So for example, it is quite powerful. Like for example, your data center, the cluster is actually located in your data center. Once you reach the limit of your resource in your data center, you're opening new nodes, new worker nodes on our Alibaba Cloud. You can do that, right? So that, but provided like my first slide, you need a secure and also express connect, a good connection to your data center, right? And that is only for the you can use our subscription node pool, different ECS node pool, and also can pay as you go node pool to add the worker nodes to your own cluster in the data center. And lastly, you can even use our serverless node as a virtual node. Our elastic container instance, like basically it's like attach an infinite resource pool to your original cluster on-prem. This is very cool. Right? You can we call it a virtual node, attach a virtual node to your cluster. So this is the ACK1. The third scenario is we call it the multi-cluster management, deployment of application to different clusters, through setting up various distribution rules policies. So you basically to use this, you attach or register multiple clusters, be it on your on-prem cluster or your Alibaba Cloud cluster or any other third-party cloud cluster to ACK1 cluster instance. Then through that, you can do the unified management or deployment of your application, right? Where to deploy, to which cluster, you can define in the rules. We call it the policy, deployment for application deployment policy. They are all in the YAML format, right? And policy, what all are some kind of policy? For example, you can have a testing cluster and a production cluster, right? Then the policy will be always go to the test cluster when you only change want to go for production, then you change the policy, then you go to production. That's one like we call it canary release type of deployment. You can also make the rules depend on the resource usage of various clusters. Let's say cluster 1 is having a high usage of a resource. You want to automatically let the policy decide which cluster have a lower resource usage and deploy to that cluster, so that they can automatically choose which cluster to deploy to. And similar to the application deployment management in multiple clusters, jobs can be also do this way to do the deployment of jobs to multiple clusters through the policies, multi-cluster policies. Right. And how many of you use Argo CD? Yeah, it is quite popular nowadays for the Argo continuous deployment tool, right? So we do provide in ACK1, basically we provide a managed Argo CD service. We call it our application center. We rename it to application center, whereby basically you don't have to create your own, deploy your own Argo CD server, but to use our managed service, you don't have to manage that part for it. Then you can basically, sorry, how do I go previous? Yeah. So basically you can make use of the managed Argo CD service to deploy, to watch and pull the different images and deploy to your multiple clusters. We will go through this. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Here we go. Okay. And I'll just go to the last one. The last one is inside ACK1. We also provide you a one-stop backup PR and migration tool. We call it the Cluster Migration Center. Whereby you can use this particular tool. Basically, it's built on the open source of Phlare. I'm not sure you heard before. We basically rebuild that particular open source tool to do for you you can use from some scenarios from on-prem cluster, migrate to Alibaba Cloud cluster, ACK cluster. You can use that tool to do migration of a cross region. Okay, you can also use it to do a backup of the cluster, right, from on-prem to our storage. And you can also do disaster recovery scenarios as well. Right, so all these tools are actually packaged inside the ACK1. Okay, so that's my introduction of ACK1. Thank you.
Thanks, and very much appreciated. So our next topic is Christian. Christian, are you online?
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead.
Okay, I hope I'm good now, and you can all hear me and see the slides and myself. So I think I'm going to make a start. Perfect.
Thank you.
So I'm going to make a start from the beginning. Yeah, my name is Christian Simon. I work for Grafana Labs, and basically part of my day-to-day work has been working on Grafana Phlare, which is a continuous profiling database. And so it is a fairly early project. So we just released in November the 0.1. I think last week we had a bit of a bug fix release. And so I think it's fairly early days. And basically the team behind us is also fairly small. So a colleague of mine, Cyril Tovina, he came up with the idea. And yeah, basically like bootstrapped the project a bit earlier this year. And I joined him like maybe around May, June this year to help him on the backend database. And then once we had the first bits working, Joey and Andre, they helped us out writing the visualizations and working on getting things into Grafana itself. And so yeah, that's pretty much it. So like I think there will be a Q&A later. So like definitely think about some questions, write them down, and yeah, I'm happy to answer them as far as I can. Yeah, so like maybe let's take a step back and think about observability in general. So like as many, I think myself, I discovered observability through Kubernetes and the application basically getting more complex, and Kubernetes itself is quite complex. And so that's how I got into the observability space myself. I think you want to be able to kind of get information out of your application and your infrastructure that you run in production, and you want to have a kind of objective way of yeah, telling, is this kind of working as expected, and yeah, like is my application serving our end users correctly, and obviously like you by defining those, you want to avoid negative user experiences, like I am not able to shop in the online shop, and therefore you want to be able to catch those problems before the users complain to your support team, or even before they actually are surfaced to the user. I think another good kind of goal for observability tools is to help you bring back your systems online quicker. So the sooner you know the problem, where it's rooted at, the quicker you can fix it, and the more information you have will also help you later if you really have to dig a bit deeper and understand the problem fully. Like obviously the first objective is always to bring back systems online and make sure they run. And then I guess the second objective is to not have the same outage ever again. And so basically, like going forward, I want to look at the three most common observability signals, and I think like one of the like widely used is logging. So basically, like you don't need to kind of any specific feature or any specific library in your application. Pretty much any software will write logs. And basically like they can come in many forms. So you might have just like string random format logs. You might use something like log fmt or JSON, or even some binary logs are quite common. Yeah, for example, in the database world. I think logs can help, yeah, quite well to understand a very kind of error detail, but sometimes it can get quite hard in terms of, because you might be logging so much that it is a bit of a needle in the haystack problem to find the actual thing that is going wrong with the current outage. And because like log lines are, yeah, quite verbose, quite big in terms of their byte size, it is quite expensive to for example get a specific number out and aggregate it across many log lines. And yeah, so I think every one of you have seen some logs. Like the screenshot is maybe also a bit too small. And basically like once you kind of hit the limits in terms of scale with logs, you need something a bit better, and that's kind of where metrics comes in. So like metrics is something that is more like a numerical value that you expose, which you measure, I guess, as part of your own code or on one of the nodes. Like the typical example would be the CPU usage for a process or for the whole machine, or like for the container, the pod in Kubernetes world. And those numbers are a lot more efficient to aggregate and to store, because in the end they are kind of a floating point value most of the times. And to actually get those values, like you most of the time need to kind of have support in the application you're running. So that you might be running something like, I don't know, Nginx or some open source project. So they might already have support for metrics in the right format. And when you write your own code, you obviously need to make those happen first before you are able to use them. I guess in the kind of web service world that a lot of us operate, it's quite common to use the so-called red method. So that you would look at the rate of requests, the rate of errors, and the latency of those requests, and then kind of would assume some kind of status of your system based on those values. I think basically, like, as you need to kind of instrument your code, or you need to kind of have support in if you use someone else's software for the metrics you actually want, it is quite important to know what you want to protect against, what you want to know about. So for example, you might find yourself in a place where the metrics didn't really help you to find that outage, and so then maybe for preventing this in the future, you kind of need to be aware of those metrics. Like I don't know, commonly, I don't know, disk full issues, for example, could be kind of exposed with a metric once you hit them. And then as a kind of third pillar of observability, traces are also quite common, and more specifically distributed tracing. So the idea there is basically like you associate every request that comes into your system with a particular trace ID, and then you can see how it propagates through the different services. Like I guess the quite popular microservices pattern will mean like that a lot of services are involved in answering a user request, and basically this will kind of tell you which kind of part of the request maybe took longer than you would expect, and yeah, just the order and the dependency between those calls. for basically, like, as you can imagine, there's quite a lot of data in those traces, so it might be quite expensive to keep all the traces. So it's quite common to sample, like, only maybe get 10% of the requests. And another interesting feature is like using exemplars in metrics. You can basically find for a particular slow request an example trace where you can then investigate a bit more, like down to that very instance, because I guess like everything about metrics is a kind of aggregated view across the process, and then across maybe the namespace, and then across all your clusters worldwide, while a trace would always be kind of down to, like, most likely one user, one kind of batch job, anything like that. And so maybe to kind of recap, I thought like it's worth looking at an example. So maybe we take that online shop example. Yeah, like you created a basket, you want to kind of buy your Christmas presents, and then basically like yeah, you see a timeout when you want to kind of check out and pay, and so like obviously, like, as a user, you're frustrated and you might open a support ticket. And then, like, to really figure out on the kind of shop operations team, you maybe want to kind of find out which trace ID, for example, was used by this one request that failed. And you can use tracing for, you can use logging for that. And then using tracing, you can see actually which service in that your microservices, like maybe you have 150 microservices composing your shop. And yeah, like, so you will figure out, like, maybe the location service, for example, is responsible for those kind of timeout that the user reported. And then you could kind of, or you would know to focus on the location service. Like, there seems to be some problem around it. And then by looking at the metrics, you figure actually out that 5% of requests to the location service are timing out. So what could be your next steps here? Obviously, like, maybe the location service is just overloaded, like, so you can see quite a bit of CPU usage when you look at the metrics. And so, like, one of the next steps could be like just scale it up, get more replicas. But obviously that comes with the downside of actually running more services, using more CPUs and more memory bytes will actually cost you some money, or your company, in the end of the month. And so your other step could be to actually look at optimizing the location service. Why is it using so much CPU? Why is it maybe using so much memory? And kind of like make sure that maybe one replica of the location service can now handle 10 times the requests. And that's kind of when profiling comes in. So profiling, I guess, is a fairly old concept, and it basically like measures how long each part of your program will run. And with part, I mean kind of down to the function, down to the line of code. It basically can help you, like, yeah, reduce your cost, because if you're able to understand like where you spend most of your time, you can focus your efforts. Let's say you have a quite expensive loop somewhere in your code, and you spend like most of the CPU on that. Once you know that, you can put some engineering time behind that particular part of the code, and maybe reduce CPU usage, and then suddenly half of the replicas would serve the same amount of traffic. So usually you profile kind of two resources. So it's quite common to measure the amount of memory that is currently in use, or the amount of memory that has been in use over time. So in a garbage collected language, like, you would allocate memory and it would cost you some to garbage collect it later. And obviously the more you can reduce there, the less work your program has to do. And obviously, like, also the time, mostly like how often is the CPU used, and for how long by which function. So this so-called kind of deterministic profiling would actually capture everything, like every small call you would make, like the length of an array, you would measure that. And most of them are actually so small, that the runtime overhead would be quite significant. So like if you imagine like you want to check the length of an array, at the same time you need to increase some counters somewhere to measure how long this took. Like that's why kind of profiling would probably double your CPU in the first. And obviously we do that to actually reduce cost, or this is what at least one of the side effects. So we actually like would need kind of some different approach, and basically like the idea there is that by using a sampling, so you would only look at a certain amount of functions, and obviously ideally the ones that took long enough. So for example, for CPU profiles in Go, the runtime of Go would look 100 times a second to see which function is currently running. And then that would give you a good enough data, obviously not super accurate, like to the digits, but it would give you the data of the functions that are kind of taking the longest, because they're more likely to be actually running in those period of 100 times where the runtime pauses and sees who is running. And that obviously like then suddenly reduces that overhead quite significantly. It's quite hard to put numbers to it. Like I think it is something you could measure when you start profiling. But like it is more in the kind of single digit percentage rather than in doubling your overheads. And so that makes it feasible to actually collect profiles like for a huge amount of services, microservices in particular, and also for every replica rather than maybe only a subset. And that kind of approach is called continuous profiling. So you would always kind of continuously request profiles. So like for example, in Phlare, one of the default would be that you would collect a new profile every 15 seconds. And then basically every 15 seconds, the Go runtime would measure the CPU calls in between. So it's like you get a full picture of when your process spends CPU and where it spends that. And through that sampling, we basically like can afford to put it always on, because it will not significantly slow down the kind of actual work that has to be done. And then you can kind of use this kind of workflow of basically like iterating on your application. So like first figure out what function is actually like consuming a lot of resources. Then you can kind of change the code and then see if it actually, maybe you made it worse by your code changes. Like it's really hard to assess some code changes without a proper benchmark or without running it in production and see if it actually improved things. And that would be kind of your iterations through optimizing your code. So this is kind of roughly like how you would visualize it. I think obviously this is just a screenshot, so that's why I'm gonna switch to an actual real world demo. At the end will have some URLs how you can actually access it yourself as well. So this is kind of the latest version of Grafana. So 9.3 comes with the necessary flame graph visualizations. So when you go to explore and have Phlare collecting your profiles, this is kind of how you would be greeted. And then now you can select what actual resource you want to look at. In this case, like you want to look at maybe let's say CPU for now. And then here you can see the familiar label selector from Prometheus or Loki if you use more of our software. And here you could, for example, say something like namespace. In this example, I'm locally, so I'm only having kind of Docker containers. But I could still select the different containers. For now, I want to look at everything. And yes, the demo gods seem to be on my side today. So you can see like I selected the last 30 minutes, and like the common way, like usually the x-axis in Grafana is the time, which is true for this graph here. So this will show you how CPU has been consumed across all of the profiles you have. So you can see it is somewhat uniform. There seem to be a couple of spikes every now and then. Like this is just kind of histogram view of how much CPU time is spent. Now if I'm scrolling down, we can see a table and a flame graph. So let's focus maybe on the flame graph first. So the flame graph itself doesn't have any time representation. So it's basically an aggregation of all of those 30 minutes CPU spent. And so we can see over that time period, like the CPU was active for 1.49 minutes. And this is kind of the total. And then we can break it down into different code paths. So we can see if you use Go, some of them might be familiar. We actually have Python here as well, but we can kind of see where all the containers are spending time on. So this is kind of basically like because we are selecting everything. So now I maybe want to see a per container view. And now it becomes a bit more interesting because like now you can see here within the histogram the different containers, and like we clearly have CPU random being like quite a bit higher than everything else. We still see everything at the flame graph below. So I just want to maybe focus on this random now to understand what it's actually doing. And so what we can see here, so now we only selected the flame graph for random. It's still the last 30 minutes. We can see it's maybe become a bit more active. But yeah, roughly it uses kind of 400 milliseconds every 15 seconds. But let's now maybe focus a bit more on the flame graph and how to read it. So I set the full width is the resources used. And so as long as you have a block underneath, you still kind of call another method. So like in this example, we would kind of have the main method do random stuff in the main package, and they would call out a rand int, and then would kind of go down and down further into this the kind of call stack. And basically like where the actual CPU is spent would be the ones where the column below is smallest. Like in this method here in 63, we spend roughly I would say 40% of the CPU, because the next method only spends 34 and in 63 is 81%. So like in this view, we actually don't really see kind of the interesting bit, because like what this kind of process is just a simple Go application creating random numbers. The actually interesting part is within the memory allocation objects, or maybe allocation space. So this will kind of see how much new memory we allocate. And now we can kind of see the power of continuous profiling at work. So while we can see it is quite uniform, every 5 minutes we can see kind of a spike. And the spike is roughly for a minute. And then I guess the memory allocation dropped down again. And so we can see that the allocations here are either in the actual overhead, because we write the profile here in this code path, or they are within that do random stuff. And that is quite a significant amount here. So when I, like, for example, look at the low spaces, we can see it's all in the profile. While when I go back to one of the peaks, I can see that do random stuff even becomes bigger. So this is a clear indication. I probably should figure out what this do random stuff is actually doing. And I hope you can see my code as well here. This is the application we're running, so it's fairly short. And basically, like to see that pattern, I basically like every 5 minutes I would allocate significantly more memory than before, just to kind of see that over time view that you would otherwise lose without continuous profiling. So I hope that all made sense to you. I think given the short time, I think I'm almost out of time anyhow. I have more demos on that. So I think definitely like there might be more talks in the future where we can dive a bit deeper into profiling. So I guess in general, for garbage collected language, if you use profiling, always work on the memory allocations. And when you start optimizing, really make sure that you're optimizing something that already uses quite a lot. If this is quite minimal, you will really struggle to reduce it. For example, the CPU profile will only show you when you're actually using CPU. If you kind of are waiting on the network or on disk, this will not show up there because you will only measure on CPU time. There's alternative ways of collecting profiles that would show you those kind of IO effects, but yeah, it will be getting very detailed. So yeah, I think I saved that for another talk. So if you have any questions, like obviously like we have the Q&A later, which I'm around to answer. You can go to our community Grafana Slack in channel Phlare to ask them. You can raise an issue on the repo. We have some docs. They are not perfect, but I think they give you a pretty good introduction. And if you want to play around just with the interface, like this URL brings you to our playground setup of Phlare. Okay, I think that was everything from my side.
Thank you so much, Christian. We probably only have time for one question. Is there anyone who has a question to Christian before I continue the next topic? Any questions? No? That means all good. Thank you so much, Christian. We will continue to the next topic.
Yeah, thank you. And maybe the next time I can be in person. Like I've not been to Singapore. Like definitely put that on my to-do list.
Oh, we do have one question. Yeah, just 1 second.
The question is very simple. Where the profile ideas?
Did you get the question, Christian?
I only got like the question is very simple, and then I couldn't really hear it.
Where the data coming from?
So in the Go example, the Go runtime supports kind of profiling. So I'm not too sure if I'm still sharing my screen. But basically, like you would expose some information internally from the Go runtime to create those profiling datas. There are other methods to get them. So eBPF, for example, can give you the information from the Linux kernel, like that it would be only CPU profiles, but it's a slightly different view. So the kernel has less information about Go, more information about what happens after Go calls a syscall, for example. So you would get slightly different information. But for example, the memory allocations is nothing the kernel has access to. In general, I think there are, like within our docs, there are some examples for other languages. It is, I would say, still early days for many. So Cyril, my colleague, has worked on a Java library, which is also fairly early days. But like, I think it is possible, I think, to provide that information from most languages with a bit of an investment.
Is that good? All right, thank you so much, Christian. Yeah, thank you. For
yeah, enjoy the rest of the talks, and yeah.
Yeah, we'll
for having me on. Bye.
So just now the answer to you I made a mistake. The maximum is by default 5,000 nodes on our ACK managed ACK cluster. With whitelisting, you can go up to 10,000.
All right, you guys can see. What about over the Zoom? Can you guys see my screen? I want to make sure they can see. I guess it should be all right, unless somebody will ask. Okay, My next topic, how to secure the ACK containers with CloudCasa. That's the tool I recently just learned about a few weeks ago. And I will give you some more details about how you can leverage the CloudCasa to protect the containers, to secure the containers. Basically, there's two pieces. One is do the backup, one is do the secure. So earlier, Ken did a very good presentation about Alibaba Cloud ACK. I'm going to go small to show you a demo to show you how to launch an ACK cluster in 10 minutes. The follow-up really is just one command. The automation script is created by you. Okay, I will show you. So I'm going to exit here because I also needed the cluster ready for my demo. So I need to launch cluster first. So I'm going to log into the Cloud shell. All I need to do is just run ACK deploy. Can you guys see the screen? Yeah. ACK, that's Alibaba Cloud Container Service for Kubernetes. I created the automation. So basically, the idea is that I'm going to create the VPC, the vSwitch, gateway, and also all in a separate. We're going to run in a separate isolated environment. The idea here is we're going to leverage the open API to create the cluster. So behind the scene, I'm actually just I need to copy the whole long URL. Let me copy. Can you guys hear me okay? So I'm going to copy this and then I'm going to paste to the web browser. So first of all, I need to log into Alibaba Cloud Web Console to get the access. So I'm going to log in first. Now, once you log in, all I need to do is I just copy the whole URL here in the browser and then press enter. So once you press enter, it will be in this screen. So you got everything already preset. You got a class name, the class type, the region, version, etc. All you need to do is click the call now. Once you click the call now, we will make a API call to the Alibaba Cloud and then to create the cluster. So actually, the cluster is already. Did I choose the wrong one? Hold on 1 second. Let me see why there is a cluster already. Unless I press it twice. Yeah, I guess I pressed it twice. So once you press enter, click call now, you are ready to go. So from the VS Code, it's not cloud. So once you see the response code 202, you just press enter. And then we just wait about 10 minutes, and then the cluster will be ready. Hopefully it will be up running very good. Otherwise, I won't be able to continue my next day. Okay, while we are creating the cluster, it doesn't take about 10 minutes. So I'm going to come here, come back to the slide.
Just one.
Yeah, go ahead.
You can integrate with Terraform.
Yeah, technically you can use the Terraform as well. Yeah, no problem. I just use the open API. I think it's very easy. I just copy the URL, open new tab, press enter. It will launch. And once I'm done, I just ACK destroy. I destroy the class I created. Okay, it's mainly for my testing purposes. So let's continue. I'm actually, even you see the Alibaba icon here, I don't work for Alibaba. Okay. I just love Alibaba Cloud. I managed to get 7 times Alibaba Cloud certified. And also I'm fully certified in Kubernetes. I just love to continue to learn. I'm also Alibaba Cloud MVP. That's where they gave me the teach and then plus the bag. The bag is here. Let me show you actually pretty nice bag. Okay. If anyone are interested to join to become a Alibaba Cloud MVP, you just use the MVP.com. And you just submit what you love, what you need, use Alibaba Cloud to create any services. They will give you nice issue and also certificate and also that. Okay. So let's continue. So I will be talking about the CloudCasa. Have you anyone heard of the CloudCasa? Except that anyone joining the group. Okay, let's do it. So we are talking about the Kubernetes data protection. If we talk about the Kubernetes data protection, there is no Gartner many pointer. There is no Forrester Wave. The only guy that is the analyst for the Kubernetes data protection, that's the home. If you look at the left-hand side, and that's from year 2020. So CloudCasa only in the picture as well. So how to read the count? The close to the center, the better. So CloudCasa was here on the right-hand side. In 2021, it becomes a new leader. How, what makes it become a new leader? I will give you some more details later. So today we are going to talk about CloudCasa on catalog. And the latest user focusing data protection in the process security. If you think about I want the one single tool, this backup, process security, probably only cloud. So that's my focus today. I give them this is all of these are I put together. I have a couple of things. In my language, I say it's a unified backup security. If you're looking for data protection, the backup data application mobility, or you're looking for the built-in security capabilities, how to secure my containers? You need to talk about, we talk about the containers. You need to scale your containers. You need to scale your configurations. This configuration, that's one of the very biggest in terms of the Kubernetes security or cloud security. The CIS benchmark is same, and then we'll scale all part of the Kubernetes. So how to enable it? It's pretty simple. Just a few steps. You register the ACK cluster. So you log into the web console, you register the ACK cluster, that's Alibaba Cloud, the Kubernetes offerings, and you install a lightweight agent. And then you can configure backup policy, you can define backup jobs, even backup the whole Kubernetes cluster, or just backup any particular instance. It is customizable. Optionally, you can bring your own storage. So I haven't talked about this, how it works. The company is providing the cloud managed backups. That means you don't have to have your own storage, your own backup servers to be managed in the environment. You might have thousands or hundreds of clusters. If you need to manage all of these backup servers, that's also pretty challenging. So the idea here is CloudCasa makes life a lot easier. You go to the cluster, you just register my web console, register to the server, and then I will do the automatic upgrade, patching, all these are management. You just start to create the backup policy to back in month. And for some of the customers say, oh, I don't want to use managed storage. CloudCasa is providing the managed storage. That means you don't have to have your own backup server, you don't have to have your own backup storage, all can be provided by it. For some customers say, I want to use my own storage. You can also optionally do your own storage. In my demo, I will show you how to leverage Alibaba Cloud object storage for the backup as a time. Okay, the second big piece is about enable the security scanning. If you already register ACK cluster, you already installed a lightweight agent. You don't have to do it again. All you need to do is just create a scan job. So the scan job will store all of these scans. I'm so excited. I want to show you now. Okay, let's say if the cluster is ready yet. If the cluster wasn't ready yet, then we might wait a little bit. Actually, the cluster is still running. Let me walk you through here a little bit. And once the cluster is ready, we will show you the continue. And If you want to prepare, you want to try by yourself, just a few steps. I also provided here. Even if you don't have an Alibaba Cloud account, I also have a video to show you how to create an Alibaba Cloud account. You only need like 5 minutes. How to create the automation of the cluster. That's the one I just want to hold. I just clone the repository and then change to the directory on ACK. So that's the one we just keep up for the command probably 5 or 6 minutes ago. And once you have the cluster ready, you also need an account to access the CloudCasa. So they also provided a free trial account, and it can be completely free. It doesn't care how many nodes, how many clusters you have. They only care one thing: the backend storage. Less than 100 gigabytes is completely free. Okay, so it's different than some other software, which I'm familiar with. They restrict like you can only use like work node that becomes a challenge. Okay, so once you got this, because the cluster wasn't ready yet, I just walk you through a little bit how CloudCasa works for your multi-cluster data protection and security needs. On the left-hand side, you can see, let me remove this. Okay, on the left-hand side, you can see, I have all different clusters. Could be vanilla Kubernetes, Amazon, EKS, AKS, DigitalOcean, or on-premises, or Alibaba Cloud. So the idea is that you just connect your cluster to the CloudCasa cloud account. So once you connect it, it will discover all of your Kubernetes resources. So for example, here my source cluster is running on XX, and I got all of these Kubernetes objects here. CloudCasa will have a small lightweight agent need to be installed in a separate namespace, and then it does all the backend jobs, talk to the CloudCasa backend from here. How the backend works. So once you connect the register cluster, you can define a job and say, I want to do the backup. When you want to do the backup, you basically just do the snapshot. Snapshot one, your application, your Kubernetes configuration, your PVC data. Literally everything to support your application will be captured here. But in that state, it's not the same. What if the whole data center is gone? You can't recover. So we always recommend to make another copy to external object storage. Because it should be far away from your primary cluster. It can be from a different region or different material process. And now, even my whole source cluster is gone, my data is sitting here, could be using the managed storage or bring your own storage. We allow you to recover to a different cluster. And it could be in different region, different Kubernetes, different distribution, different account, different zone, availability zone, etc. It's all supported. Okay? And once I restore the job finished, you actually all of your application will be up running from the target cluster. Also, you might only want YY. Could be completed two different versions. Any questions here? So if we talk about Alibaba Cloud here, I will shortly use the demo to show you Alibaba Cloud. I will do the backup. My cluster was created in Singapore region, but I'm going to send to the Jakarta region. I got the S3 bucket, object storage, OBS, sitting in Jakarta region. So if I want to recover to Jakarta, as long as you have a cluster from Jakarta region, you can easily recover. Because your data is already moving to Jakarta region. Now, why moving to a different region? I mentioned earlier, it is more reliable and to address your disaster coverage. So, any question here?
That include the DES.
That included the. So the question can have is, does that include the persistent mode? Persistent modes, yes, it does include everything. So from here, you can see it does include your application components, your configuration, and the data snapshot. The data that means the PVC, the holdings of your application. Okay. And all of these actually is a GUI view. So it's all from the what comes the shop that I will show you. Any other question?
There may be downtime to
No, the question is, do we need any downtime for the database backup? No.
and can you snapshot? Will there be any or downtime to the app? So is a very question.
Okay, so you talk about the application consistency backup. If you want to do the application consistency backup, and there is an app hook to allow you to create the application before you take the snapshot. After taking the snapshot, you will unfreeze. Okay.
Can do real time backup.
It's why you are continuously doing the job. So it doesn't, you don't have to stop your database application. So nowadays, when you're running the Kubernetes applications, most likely it was MongoDB, custom backup, PostgreSQL, MySQL, all these applications. Definitely, you don't have to. You just do the snapshot. Yeah. No question? Let me see if the cluster is ready. Yeah. Looks like it's all good. So this time it took us 12.5 minutes to create the whole cluster. But it should be all good. Let's continue. So before I continue, I want to just verify to see if the cluster is all good. Actually, it wasn't good. Let me do this. So probably the configure wasn't ready. Let's do it again. Yeah, I got one node cluster here. You guys can see AP Southeast 1 that's running from a Singapore region. Right now, I just use the 1.20. So I got the cluster here. So all I need to do the next is, and from the web console, you can see the cluster also up running. That was just created about 15 minutes ago. And all I need to do from here is I just open Meetup. So I log into CloudCasa. So if you don't have an account yet, you can just click sign up. And after you click sign up, they make life really easy. They don't ask you payment details. Just ask your email address, your name, and then you agree. Once you click sign up, in a short way, you will get the email. You just click verify, and then you can log into the web console. So I already have an account. Let me log in. So I log into the. Yes, need to choose the username, password, and then click sign in. So I log into the CloudCasa web console. It's pretty simple, easy to use dashboard. The moment you log it in, yeah, it looks like it's too big, and then make it smaller. So you can see I got the job status, how many clusters I have, and so from here you might also notice the cloud provider. So right now they only list the cloud provider like Google, Azure, AWS. But for the three, we have even more advanced features. So instead of you register cluster name, you just ask you add the cloud account. You add AWS, Google, Azure. It will automatically discount all of your clusters. You don't have to register the cluster individually. So for now, if it's not running on the top three, or it is running from on-premises, you might running OpenShift launcher or VMware Tanzu. You can do the same thing. So the first thing I want to show you is how I'm going to register the cluster. So I go to the configurations. On the configurations, there is a cluster here. Click the clusters. And I haven't, actually, I don't have only a cluster. Let me remove this one. Actually, I got the previous job is also configured. I need to remove that one also. So otherwise, let me just add a new one, give a new name. Let's say ACK for Yongkang. This is all I need. I just give a name of the customer. And for some other customer, they ask me, what about its isolated environment? If it's isolated environment, you can also add the customer. Okay. So if I click on advanced settings here, you can choose CloudCasa providing the storage by default, or you can choose Avaya storage. So that means you are using your own storage, using your own storage. So for now, let me leave it at default for now. So I just click on register. I haven't provided anything yet. How to connect to my customer? Actually, after you click register, it will provide you a command. You run this command from your terminal, and then it will install the lightweight agent. So this is the command. So I copy this command, and then come back to my Cloud Shell, not Cloud Shell, actually, VS Code. And I paste the command, press enter. So by doing this, only take probably 1 minute or less. And we're going to install the agent. And once the agent is finished, if you want to mod it, so what we're doing here is we are actually install. So the top one, CloudCasa install a Q agent manager. And with the Q agent manager, we launch the actual Q agent. So once the agent port is up running, it will spin up a Q agent port. And when the Q agent port is up running, if you go back to your dashboard, you should be able to see it becomes active. Right now, I'm also pre-deployed. Remember, I mentioned, part of my automation, I also deploy the sample database, Postgres. It's already up running. If I go back to the dashboard here, yeah, you can click close, and you can click save. It wasn't ready yet, but it was initially ACK for Yongkang 2. It was registered. Once the agent install finished, it will become active. Once it becomes active, we can start it back now. That's simple. So let's see if the job is finished yet. Yeah, it is the portal still creating. Any questions here? The agent, it's not a demo set, it's just a normal agent. The control plane is running from CloudCasa Cloud. So that is actually good. You don't have to manage the control plane. Yeah. Any other questions? So the idea here is to summarize. First of all, you register the customer. Once you register the customer, you get a command to run from your terminal. From the terminal, the command finishes just a YAML file. Once you complete the command, it will connect to the CloudCasa cloud. Yeah, looks like it take a little bit more than 1 minute. Are we all good so far? Yeah. So while we're waiting here, I'm going to just show you there is a tab here. It's called backup. Normal configurations, the policy. I show you the policy configurations. The policy configuration is about how often you want to do the backup and how long you want to keep. That's how we define a policy. You can define a very simple one. The very simple one, the first one is every hour. The second one is more like a little bit complex. I do it every hour. I also do daily, weekly, and monthly. If you want to add a new policy, just click on add a policy. And it just asks you to give a policy name and then make a few selections.
It will be incremental backup.
Yeah, but the policy is included. Yeah. When you talk about the included, it is actually depends on the storage providers. But nowadays, if you talk about the CSI environment, contains storage, most of it is for the included backups. Yeah, now it is showing running. You guys can see the bottom of the screen, 2/2, there are 2 containers. And not only running, but also ready status. So if I go back to the cluster settings here, you can see now it is showing active. Yeah, you guys can see it is showing active. That means my cluster ACK, I just created like 15 minutes ago, already connected to the cloud. Now next job is I want to define a backup job. How I'm going to back them up. So from here, the protections backup, you can say I want to define a backup. I'm actually already have a backup defined here. Yeah, let me remove this one. I want to show you from the beginning. So I click add a backup. So the first question is you give a name, let's say ACK I want to do a snapshot and then I want to copy to Indonesia region. Okay. So which cluster you are going to back up? ACK for Yongkang, that's the new cluster I just created. The next step, so do you want to back up the whole cluster or just want to select the namespace? So for me, I don't care the rest of the system. I only care about PostgreSQL. So you just select the namespace. And the next thing, do you want to enable app hook? App hook is for the application consistency backup. Should I do snapshot only? I don't like the idea to snapshot only. I want to do snapshot and copy. Do I want to delete the snapshot after snapshot? After copy? I don't like the idea to delete it. I want to keep a local copy in case I need to recover. I can do this. So I can disable this option. And before I click next, I want to show you the advanced options. Yeah, because I want to bring my own storage. So in this case, I can choose my storage. And which storage I'm going to use? I created two of the storage. One is the normal origin, both from Alibaba Cloud, ODS, object storage. I'm going to send it to Indonesia. Yeah, I explained to you earlier. I want to make it more reliable in case the whole data center is gone, I can still recover. So I want to send the backup to a different region. But you can also customize like a concurrent streams or max speed. I don't want to configure these. Click next. So my policy is almost ready. You can decide and say, if you want to scale your backup using existing policy, I have two policies here. If you want to schedule, you can say, I want to do every 1 hour. But for my case, I just want to give you an on-demand backup to show you how it works. And then click next. And click run now. By default, it keeps 7 days. Click create. That's it. That's how I created and enable the backup jobs. Typically, just about a few minutes, the backup jobs will be uploading, and then you can go back to the dashboard. If you want to monitor the status, you can go back to the dashboard. Say, actually, let me make it smaller. Yeah, from the dashboard under the activities, you can notice there is a job running. That's the new job. I just kick it off. It's called an ACK PostgreSQL backup snap and copy, and then copy to the Indonesia region. If you go to activity log, you can see what exactly we're backing up. We discover all of your resources. You got the 34 resources. We're going to back up all of them. And then we also discover you have the persistent volume here. So we're back to the persistent volume as well. Okay. And the PV detailed copy, once the copy job is finished, you will see from here. Yeah, the job does take about 2 minutes or 3 minutes to finish. Any questions? Okay. I believe by default it's encrypted. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, the question is if I want to recover restore from one cluster to the other cluster, does the PVC also keep the original UUID? That's the question. I'm not sure. I don't know. Well, what I can tell you is what you really need here is my source customer only post recycle. When I restore to my target customer, can it still continue to work? Right? I can guarantee it will continue to work, but I don't know if the UI is still keep the same or different. I guess it could be different. Yeah. Okay. So while we're talking here, you can see now we'll copy the namespace. So basically, we already completed the job. Now we'll do the second step, copy to this to the object storage. Oh, actually, pretty quick. Why it is quick? Because I don't really have any data, and also plus the duplication compression settings. If you go here, the details you can see we only like a transfer probably about 38 gigabytes or megabytes. Only 38 megabytes. My PVC size only 1 gigabytes. But I don't really have much data here, so that is pretty quick. And the transfer only like a 7 megabytes, so very quick. So now, so once you have the backup job here finished, it is completely. If somebody accidentally deletes the whole namespace from your source customer, is there any problem? No. Because I have another copy from in the region. Or maybe you just want to recover to it's not a recover. You want to clone from your production system. I give you an example. Your production system is running very slow, but still okay, still doing some job. We don't want to shut it down. We want to target it. So what we can do is we can clone to the new namespace. From the backup, we can do the troubleshooting investigation from the new namespace. So next, I'm going to show you how to recover the new namespace. So I click restore. Before I do this, I want to show you what namespace I have from my current system. So I come back to my VS Code. If I do the namespace list here, so I only have the Yongkang the plus CloudCasa. I don't have other namespace except the system namespace. So what I'm going to do here is when you do the restore, if your primary copy is still here, obviously you will do the final. It will be much faster compared to recover from the object storage. But for my case, I want to show you how you can recover from the second copy. In this case, it is already sitting from the Jakarta region. And click next. And next step, what are you going to restore? You can say, I want to restore everything. But for me, I only care this particular namespace. So I select this namespace. And I can go to next. Do you want to restore to here is a beauty. I really love this. You actually part of your restore. You can spin up a new class. This is pretty cool. Think about a disaster recovery situation. Do you really want to keep 24/7? Keeps on up running? No, not at all. Only when disaster happens, you want to bring it up. So in this case, we don't need to keep your target cluster, DR cluster up running. Part of my restore, I will spin up a new cluster. Right now, I only support the 3 major. For Alibaba Cloud, we can talk about this incomes. Maybe they can add Alibaba Cloud to this to here as well. Okay, but it doesn't mean you can't restore to Alibaba Cloud. It's just that you can't automatically create a new cluster. Okay, you see the difference, right? So for me, I just want to restore to my existing cluster. Just to give you an example. But I want to change it to a different namespace. Let's say the namespace is I just want to activate the cache clock to the end. Actually, it's run out of battery. I think that is the case. Yeah, looks like hello. Hello. Oh, it's not a battery issue. Hello. 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 Can you not see that? Oh. Hello, hello. Yeah, looks like it is a little bit low. Okay. So let's continue. So I want to restore to a new cluster. The namespace, I just add a dash clone and click next. click next. And before I click the restore, I need to give the restore a name. So what restore? So let's say PG clone. I'll make it number 5. Yeah, just in case I already have already created name. So click restore. So shortly you will see a new job will be running from the dashboard. So you can see the PG-clone 5 is already running here. And then click the details, you can see activity log. I also like the activity log. Otherwise, you're completely blinded. You don't know what's happening. So with the activity log, you know what's happening here. And if you want to check from the command line, if you go to watch the pod status, you can see we already created the new clone namespace, and we are actually already starting the containers in the clone namespace. Actually, it is already running. And yeah, also pass the readiness check. So 17 seconds, we already cloned to a new namespace. What do you guys think? Have you guys seen any other tools are so easy, so simple? Seriously, this is the best I have been seeing. It is. So for on-premises, you need to connect it to the cluster. So it doesn't require you inbound access, only requires you have outbound access to the IP address 5443. Okay. So seriously, this tool is pretty cool. So if I get the namespace list, you can see my new namespace. Hello? Hello? This one works better now. Yeah. You can see the namespace has been recovered successfully. Any question? Actually, I only studied halfway. I got a lot of stuff. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, the question is maybe can you help answer? So his question is about how Taobao or Tmall was using ACK.
This is not related to this tool, but yes, our cloud native, I mean Taobao and Tmall is actually running on top of ACK, but it's all our own premise type. Yeah, how we use it, that is a very long story. Yeah, basically ours is in a microservice architecture for the Alibaba.com. We use a similar architecture. But to describe it to you is like huge. Like basically each of the function you found on, for example, Taobao, like the shopping cart, the user management, all of them are different microservices, and we put it into the pod or the microservice pod, then deploy on the ACK running. Yeah, something like that. Then they interact with each other, call each other, and underneath there's our database. We use one database called Ocean Base that is also from Alibaba Cloud. That doing the transaction. But that one is a bit different from that architecture, whereby the PostgreSQL is running inside the cluster, but our database is run outside as a layer itself. But itself is a cloud native type of database also. And then there's a lot of small other components as well. I think it's going to be a very huge topic. Yeah. So just now, when we asked about the maximum that I was saying about 20,000-30,000, that one is actually on our own one. We can be able to achieve that, right? But for the commercial one, we propose to our customer is only 5,000. Then whitelist to 10,000. But actually, that is up to 20K bare meters. We call it bare meters to at the bottom to power that not bare data by WM.
Thanks, Ken. Let's continue to the second part. So we only talk about the backup piece, but to secure your container. So regardless of how your backup are reliable, but if your environment wasn't secure, it's useless. Right. So the next one we're going to talk about how to secure my Kubernetes cluster. So from all these areas, we talk about the container security. So for example, your containers have some vulnerabilities, but do you know? Do you have the visibility? Do you have the insights? Is there any configuration issues? Is there any network related issues inside your Kubernetes cluster? What about the benchmark scan, CIS benchmark scan? These are also very important. I'm glad the CloudCasa also have the built-in scan capabilities, security scan capabilities. So earlier we just talk about the backup and the DR or mobility stuff. Now let me talk about the security piece. So back to my console here. And remember earlier we talked about it. I already registered the cluster. I already have the agent installed. All I need to do is just create a scan job. So how to create a scan job? There is a tab called security. And from here, you can click overview on the scan job. And from the scan job, all you need to do is you just create a scan job. It does cover all different Kubernetes distribution. In this case, you might want to scan ACK, you might want to scan AWS or the EKS, other Kubernetes also. Okay. And for my case, I just add a new job. Let's say I want to scan ACK number 2. So you just select your cluster, which cluster you're going to scan. So I select my cluster and I make my selection. You can also optionally to send you a report. Once the scan job is finished, you know what's happening from your cluster. So I'm going to click next. And you can also schedule the job, just like the backup job. You can schedule to say, I want to run every hour, every day, or whatever you decide. I'm going to just run once now. So click run now, click save. And from the dashboard, you will see a new job will be kicked off. So you can see the scanning job, it was initially pending, and then it will become running. And once the job is finished, we will see how secure your Kubernetes. And you can look into your Kubernetes cluster. You have more insights, more visibility into your Kubernetes cluster to see how I can improve the security posture. If you go to the activity log, you can see what step we are doing right now. So this scan job, it does take probably about 4 minutes. So we will come back here. So let me just continue a bit of the slides. So what are the typical use case? So typically we talk about the for security people, they do care the container security, the Kubernetes security, or cloud security. That's where you can use the built-in security scan capabilities. And the second big use case is about the backup, the DR, and also application mobility. You might want to move from on-premises to the cloud, or maybe from one cloud to the other cloud. Even from the same cloud, let's say from Alibaba Cloud, the initial region is in Singapore. Or later they introduced the Jakarta region. The customer wants to move back to Jakarta. That is also supported. And you might want to move from a different version. Maybe you're running 1.20 today, you want to move to 1.25, or maybe 1.24. Maybe you want to move from a VMware Tanzu to OpenShift, or maybe OpenShift to Launcher. All of these are supported. Most likely you want to move to Alibaba. Right? Okay. And the last use case is about a simplified upgrade maintenance. If I was running 1.20 now, but the latest version actually 1.26, it's almost there. But how you can jump skip the version to the upgrade, it is pretty challenging. For some, like OpenShift, they can't do the skip version upgrade. For the managed Kubernetes cluster, I don't know Alibaba Cloud is allowing to skip version upgrade. Most likely can't. So in this case, the last use case I highlighted here, I'm running 1.20 now. I want to jump direct to 1.24. how you can do. It is pretty challenging, right? So with this way, we actually can avoid the challenges because we are not doing the upgrade. You just spin up a new cluster, 1.24. Life is easier, right? We do the backup from the source and restore to the new cluster. So that's why I put here is we can simplify your upgrade maintenance. You don't really need to upgrade every version. You can directly jump to the newer version. Okay, I do have a playlist talking about the CloudCasa. So previously I also covered some other communities. Yeah, let me do it. Yes. So the beauty is that typically the backup software, we have the capability to mask the challenges, to understand the API changes. So when I restore to the new cluster, let's say 1.24, I know there are a lot of API already deprecated and they introduce some new API. I will make sure when I restore the application, I can match to the new cluster. Yeah. That is actually pretty cool. That's one of the big use cases. Yeah, there is another question. Yeah, I will show you now. Now the job should finish. Let me show you what skin job here. So the job just completed. Let's see how long it take. It take about 4 minutes, just under 4 minutes. The scanning job finish. If you go to the security, I'm going to check the scan history. So I want to check the cluster scan history, but it also does allow you to scan the cloud again, because the guys are only focusing on the top 3. So the scan cloud right now only is the top 3. Alibaba Cloud maybe in the future. Yeah. So for now, let me show you the scan history of my cluster. So you can see my cluster, we just finished A21, we kick off the job. I click the details, here you go. That's your cluster, your Kubernetes cluster status. How many jobs failed, how many jobs are passed the scan. So if you go to here, so you can see my container scan, my configuration scan, my benchmark scan, how many jobs scan, how many jobs actually failed, how many passed. If you want to look into the details, you can click aside my, let's say, configuration scan. So it will give you some more details. I got a certain job critical here, and towards the right-hand side, there is a detail. If I click the details, you can see here is the details. So for example, your container should not have the dangerous capabilities. The privilege escalation should not be allowed. So basically to give you some more insights, you know what's happening from my containers. Otherwise, typically, you just know the cluster is running, but how secure your environment, you don't know. So with the scan capabilities, it gives you some more insights, and you can troubleshooting, you can fix the problems before really some actual problems happen. Yeah. Yeah, time-wise, I haven't talked about the second topic yet. And you also look into, you can see my benchmark scan or your network scan. So you can click the details as well. So most likely you might care the high severity issues. So why do you need to correct this issue, fix this issue? So that's about the scan job, scan capabilities. Any question? Yeah, we are all good. Yeah, pretty good, right? It gives you a recommendation based on the list or CIS benchmark. I did not show you. Yeah, actually, you click the details. There is a link. You can click the link to find the details of why this is a CVE or vulnerabilities. Yeah. Okay. So let's continue. Let me see how much. Yeah, I love automation. I created automation not only for Alibaba Cloud, also for other Kubernetes cluster. And yeah, that's all. We haven't finished, only halfway. Okay, that's my first topic. about how to use CloudCasa to secure your containers. So the next topic is how to secure ACK containers with a Phlare. Has anyone heard of Phlare? No? Yeah? The Phlare, I will give you more details shortly. So I love to show off my certifications. I did the 6 times security certifications. So again, 4 times Kubernetes certified. So that's cover all of top of 5 public cloud. Okay. So Phlare is an open source project. They're focusing on cloud native runtime security. They are cloud the de facto Kubernetes threat detection engine. And think about it, it's a security camera. So to detecting your unexpected behavior or intrusions or any data set in real time. This is pretty cool. 47 million downloads. It's open source. You don't have to pay anyone. You just download and use. And I will give you a live demo to show you how to use Phlare to detect my Kubernetes cluster on Alibaba Cloud. And if you guys saw this last month, the Phlare, they just submitted the proposal for the CNCF graduation. Do you guys know the 3 stages? When you have a project that submit to CNCF, initially will be sandbox project, and then becoming in Kubernetes project, then finally becoming graduating. So they just submitted the proposal last month. Hopefully soon will be becoming graduating. It depends. 2 major things. So adoption level from the customers and also maturity level of the product. So that means the product actually pretty mature, already adopted by a lot of customers. Okay, talking about the container security, the prevention is not enough. So that's why Phlare was running here. You guys are all heard of the 4C, right? The code security, the container security, cluster security, and the cloud security. So Phlare was running from inside of the code, and plus also they're running from the user space to cover your container security and also cluster security. With the plug-in, it does allow you to talk to the cloud directly. So high level, they're focusing on the runtime security for the containers in the Kubernetes, and also runtime cloud risk detection. It's open source. So here is how it works. So Phlare was here. It talked to the Linux system via the syscalls, and talked to the Kubernetes cluster via the audit logs. For the cloud, it talked to, depends on which cloud, you want to talk to Cloud Trail or audit logs or activity logs. It does support all different Kubernetes distributions. So for my demo, I will show you use the Alibaba Cloud ACK as an example, but the tool does cover all different Kubernetes distributions. So here is an architecture. Yeah, that's too much. I want to skip this. Yeah, but I do have a pre-recording. I will share you the links. Yeah, and also I will share you the slide. So now demo time. I show you how it works. So first of all, where to deploy? How you deploy the Phlare. Let me remove this one. So there are a couple of ways you can deploy Phlare. It is recommended to install Phlare on Linux host. So the reason is for the isolation. You want to notice here, even you're running Kubernetes cluster, it is recommend you install Phlare on the Linux system, but for some case, if it's managed Kubernetes, you don't really get access. For some situation, you don't get access to the host. So in that case, you can set up a Phlare to run on Kubernetes cluster. If you don't need the isolation, you can also deploy Phlare as a Docker containers. So for my demo, I will show you how to deploy this, set up the Phlare on Kubernetes. It is also pretty simple. Yeah, I'll show you short. Yeah, again, I show you this whole year. If you don't have a cloud account, you don't have a cluster, launch one. Once you have the cluster ready to install, the first 2 steps,
basically, it will check if you don't have the Linux kernel headers, you need to install that one. If you don't have a Helm, you need to install that one. Or obviously you should already have. And then to install, you just add the Falco chart repository, and then you run this single command to install to your cluster. So I'm going to show you now how to install to my ACK cluster, which we created probably half an hour ago. So I'm going to exit this. Now jump to my Cloud shell. So the one command which I'm going to run here is, so I just added the repository. So once I added the repository, the single command I'm going to run here is run the Helm install command. And I'm going to launch the pod from the Falco namespace. If you want to monitor, you can see git pod. Oops. Yeah, you can see Falco is here. It is initializing. Shortly, it will become running status. So once it becomes running, you can monitor. It is real time to monitor to see is there any abnormal activities, any problems from your system. But in the meantime, let me launch another terminal. So I want to use another terminal to show you. I need to set my kube configure, and then I can verify yes. And now I can tell the Falco logs. It's still not running yet. It's still hold initializing. And once it becomes running status, I can tell the Falco log to say if there is any problems, anyone is trying to break anything, or maybe you just want to share to the containers. It will be flagged as a problem. Okay, maybe you're going to create a file from the /bin or /root or /sbin, for example. I just give you 2 examples. These will be flagged, but it will just give you the alerts or where to send the alerts. You can integrate with your existing systems. Could be Slack, it could be Teams, it could be Grafana, Loki, or any other tools. It can be allowed to integrate. But the tool seriously just focusing on the real-time monitoring to alerting you. Is there any problems? Okay, it is running right now. If I switch to another tab, you can see I'm going to run the same command. So you can see. Let me make it bigger. Can you see? Yeah, that's the command. It says my Falco was initialized. This is my Falco configuration. So Falco configuration also a YAML file. And I also loaded the Kubernetes auditor plugin. If you don't, by default, if you run the command to install the Falco, it does not include the Kubernetes audit integration. Okay, so that's why I modified a little bit. If you copy my command, it should be running okay. And then we loaded the rules, Kubernetes auditor rules, and also the Falco rules. And the event source is not only syscalls and also Kubernetes audit logs. So now, if I jump to another, the previous shell, the terminal, if I'm going to cancel this here, I'm going to simulate problems, and then you will see Falco will capture the events. Let me cancel this one. I'm going to run another command. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to trigger one of the Kubernetes audit rules. I simply just log into my PostgreSQL, the container. I log into the shell. Okay, I just log into the shell immediately. If I switch to another terminal, you can see. So you can see here. And we already discovered there is a problem here. A shell was spawned in the container with an attached terminal. And all these details, what are the port name, PostgreSQL, so that's my port name, the namespace, Yong-PostgreSQL, and the container ID, the image ID, etc. So any issues, by default, they already have all these rules there, unless you want to customize. So this is how Farco can help you secure your containers. So I use Alibaba Cloud ACK as an example, but it does cover all different Kubernetes. I give you another command, another try. So if I'm going to do another thing here, so this command, we're going to touch a file. Actually, I forgot to exit. So I was still in the PostgreSQL, the port. I'm going to exit this. Then I'm going to run another command. So simply, I'm going to touch a file from the bin directory. That shouldn't be allowed. And that flagged as a problems. So if I go back to the file code here, so you can see we discovered the second problems. So there is an error. The error is error file below a known binary directory open for writing. And the user logged in, and the command is touch, and the file is /bin/test bin. Okay, and which pod, which container we are using. I think that's pretty much all for my demo. Let me come back to the slide. So the first part is install, we already installed. And the second part is how to test. So I already created this. So for example, yeah, go back to the last one. If you by default install the Farco, it does not including the Kubernetes audit trail. Okay. So in my, I put my Kubernetes audit trail YAML file to the public GitHub. So you just run this command, we will enable the Kubernetes audit trail. And to test, simply, I just showed you how to run the command to trigger the Kubernetes audit rules. If you want to set up on Linux, I also included the instructions. Literally just one install command. Yum install Farco or apt install Farco. Yeah. And for the testing, you can do similar things. You might want to try to find the secret file, the private key file. It will flag. It give you a lot. You might want to touch a bin file from the bin folder. The last one I want to show you here is Farco is an open source tool. It was created by SysDig, but now it's an open source managed by CNCF. But SysDig themselves, the company, also leverage Farco. But in addition, they provide some enterprise feature functionalities. Also, not to mention they have the enterprise support, etc. If you want to give it a try, yes, they do have this. I think a 30 days trial or something. Anyone want to load Farco? I just loaded like probably 2 weeks ago. I go to load.sysdig.com and I completed 2 of the modules. So Farco 101 and also Farco plugin. It's more for the cloud integration. Yeah, this is my high complete. Yeah, I love to learn. I just keep learning. I'll then share what I learned. And I think that's my topic for now. Any other questions about Farco? Yeah, Farco definitely is one of the very popular tools. No question? Yeah, go ahead. That is a very good question. So with the detection, we already detected the problems. And then you can leverage any tools you're using. For example, you might use the AWS Lambda, for example. You might want to use any tools you want to take some actions. It is on the board. Yeah. But the tool just focusing on capture the events, give you a lot, how to take action, that's how you do it. Yeah. But it does give you all the integration, the points, you can integrate all these popular tools. Yeah. Any other questions? All good? Open mic time. Anyone has anything want to share? And you might just want to introduce yourself to the team, or maybe nobody. I got something to announce upcoming meetups. I'm actively joining the 3 meetups. So the Kubernetes meetup, that's me, I organize. And I also co-organizing AWS meetup, and also co-organizing AWS security meetup. Yeah, we're trying to run every month. Feel free to join us. Yeah. So we are part of the community. I don't work for any one of the companies. Yeah, we just learn and share with the community. Anyone saw this? So Ken did mention earlier, Argo, right? It's pretty popular. They actually a few days ago, CNCF just announced Argo has graduated. That's awesome. A lot of people actually using Argo CD or other, GitOps tools. If you guys want to learn, I already completed all the learning from Code Fresh. So there is a one basic one, fundamentals GitOps, and the second one is at scale. So feel free to learn, and it's completely free. And actually, to me, I learned a lot. So my traditional background is actually doing the storage backup. So only from a few years ago, I shifted my focus to more public cloud, multi-cloud, Kubernetes, microservices, DevOps, GitOps. Yeah, I still continue to learn. Yeah, go ahead. Question?
Yeah, with the industry best practices of production and for example, very cloud like Indian factories. So how do the tools to rise out of the Indian factories, the AS, government, healthcare, and
Actually, I'm
securing encryption level,
so encryption is one thing. So you talk about the government want to use how to secure the environment in compliance. Yeah, definitely the compliance requirements is very important to any companies. And I don't know how to answer your question, but typically, if you look at the tools, all the cloud company, they also put the regulation requirements, the compliance requirements is one of the top focus to any one of them. And for any one of the software companies, they also put the compliance requirements as the top priorities. If you talk about Farco itself, it's open source. You can. Yeah, CloudCasa, yeah. But if you want to check from their website, probably they already have some details. Yeah. So the last one I want to highlight is my friend Chirag. He's organizing a live Q&A with cloud leaders. Some of these guys, did you guys know any one of the guys? Yeah, the guys are pretty popular. But when you talk about multi-cloud certifications, Eugene, yeah, he's the guy. He's the guy organizing there is a, the certification in the cloud. He got like 67 LinkedIn followers, 67K. And there are a few more other guys. It's coming 17th, 8 p.m. Singapore time, actually, pretty good for us. So feel free to join these guys. I think that's all I want to talk about for now, unless you guys have any other questions. Well, I haven't given away the speakers and also the phone holders. And also I got the 3 questions to ask you guys about the speaker, okay? And I do have a 3 t-shirt. They sponsored me the 3 t-shirt for you guys. The first question is super simple. Who created Farco? I think that's the one from the back. What size you need? M, let me see. Yeah. I do have an M here. So the second question, there is no more medium, only. Okay, so the question reserved for a large, okay? Okay, the second question is also about the FARC. So how FARC will talk to the Linux system? Who is the first? Who is the first? Yeah. Okay, there is a large, and the last question. Actually, last question is for Excel. The last question is for, I remember what question I'm going to ask. Where FARC should be deployed? So the recommended way. I think yeah, the back. Yeah, you are the first. Is that Excel too big for you? I don't know. I think that's all. Unless you guys have any other questions, otherwise we'll take a group photo and then everyone can collect the FARC system for the stickers and also CloudCasa that is providing the phone holders. Okay. Thanks everyone. Should we just line up here, take a photo? Yeah. Victor, I need you to take a photo for all of us.